Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Afonso Eça. You are not seeing the same thing as I am. But okay, so my name is Afonso Eça. I'm giving this inspirational talk, the last one that you are going to have. You already had a lot of these, so I will try to be brief and, above all, useful. So, a little bit about the theme for this short talk. I'm going to talk about careers in finance, okay? So, different types of careers that you can have based a little bit on my background, okay? Just a few things about my background. First of all, and probably most important, I will probably be a teacher of you at some point in this next year, since I teach financial modeling and other courses in the masters here at Nova. But going directly to the topic, I started my career in what I call traditional finance, okay? So traditional finance is the type of job that you can get in banking, be it investment banking, M&A, and stuff like that, okay? So I started my career in the hedge fund industry, more or less 12 years ago, and it's one possible path, probably the path that many of you are thinking of. So getting out of here and even applying for next summer for a role in this sort of institution, okay? So there's definitely lots of pros in that path. I will go to that in a minute. But there is also some new opportunities nowadays, okay? I called it entrepreneurial finance. Some people call it fintech. It's a whole different area that is also available to you, okay? So completely different paths. I've done both of them, as I will explain in a few minutes. But my main goal today is try to illustrate what you have ahead of you. So what kind of choices can you make, and what will be best suitable for you, okay? So I've been teaching here in the Masters in Finance for many years now, almost a decade, and neither traditional finance is for everyone, neither entrepreneurial finance is for everyone, okay? So maybe you have in the back of your heads that what you really want is go and work in an investment bank or in a consultancy firm doing financial stuff, but maybe that's not for you, okay? The same way that maybe you want to go into fintech because you really like crypto assets and bitcoins and stuff like that, and you think that banks are going to disappear in the near future, but maybe that's also not for you, okay? So going for my experience, okay, I've been there on the other side. I was there more or less 12 years ago, and I had my mind fixed that I wanted to work in financial markets, okay? So when I get out of my master's, I was starting a job in a trading desk, and I started in September of 2008, okay? So most of you probably don't know that, but in September of 2008, it's when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, okay? So big dream about working in financial markets, super exciting, and what I actually got was 4 years of a major financial crisis, okay? So that's tip number one. Don't judge your future role or your future job for what it has been in the past, okay? Events, crises, they are always happening, okay? It's not only COVID. There are many other crises that will follow suit for sure, okay? So, good things about traditional finance, okay? So, going and working for a role that the majority of people know what it is. The first advantage is that it will probably bring good brands into your CV, okay? So, that's a major plus when you get out of the university, okay? So being able to get to do the jump from university to a top-tier investment bank, to a top-tier retail bank, to a top-tier consultancy firm, it's a great thing, okay? It's a stamp that will stay in your CV forever, okay? So I know people that have worked in Goldman Sachs and in Credit Suisse 30 years ago, and then they went and worked for other firms, but they still present themselves as being a Goldman Sachs ex-employee, okay? And they were there for 3 or 4 years, 30 or 40 years ago, okay? So that's one of the major advantages of pursuing a role in traditional finance, is the brand that you get to put in your CV, okay? And this sort of brand is extremely important if you see yourselves going through a more corporate career, okay? So if you really want to go and climb the corporate ladder, and your dream is to be the CEO of a major company in Europe or in your own country, that's a good path for you, okay? So trying to collect those stamps. A second thing about working in a more traditional environment is people understand the roles, okay? So if you go and talk to a headhunter, if you want to change jobs, and you say that I've been working in sales and trading in a big investment bank, or I've been an M&A analyst in a consultancy firm, people know what kind of role that is. They know what kind of skills you have been developing. They know what kind of exposure you get to different seniority levels in firms. They understand what you have been doing, okay? It's easier to sell your path, okay? So those I would say are the advantages of traditional finance. And I've been there, I've done that, and then I decided that it wasn't for me, okay? So I decided that I wanted to do something different. So I went into the fintech side. So more or less 7 years ago, I decided to leave a very, very comfortable job in the trading desk. Oh, there is another prawn, a very good pro of traditional finance. You get paid extremely well, okay? So that part, it's very important. Second path, entrepreneurial finance. So I decided to leave all that behind and start my own financial company, a fintech company, okay? So I started here in Portugal a marketplace lender. So a marketplace where we connect borrowers, companies, small and medium-sized companies that need loans with investors. Okay, we started more or less 7 years ago. Entrepreneurship, it's extremely difficult, okay? It doesn't matter what sector it is, it's very, very difficult. And I will explain why I think it's very, very difficult in a minute. In finance, it's even more difficult, okay? There is a characteristic about finance or the financial sector that you don't have in any other place. Finance is extremely regulated, okay? And regulation is usually a factor that doesn't promote very fast growth in companies, okay? And when you are starting something, you want your company to grow, okay? And if you have a lot of regulation around you, you cannot grow that fast, okay? So entrepreneurship is very, very difficult. In finance, even more, okay? So keep this in mind for everything that I'm going to tell next. So why did I decide to go through this path, okay? In traditional finance, everything was kind of mapped for me, okay? For some people, this is a huge advantage. You know that if I put in the effort, if I put in the hours, if I put in the years, if I probably don't care that much about work-life balance, I will succeed, okay? I will get to the top of the ladder. And you are in your early 20s and you are able to map your life for the next 20 or 30 years, okay? Some people really, really want that. I didn't want that. I wanted to try something different, and so I wanted to start something from scratch, okay? When you start something from scratch, huge hurdles. Probably the biggest one, it's something that no university in the world can prepare you for it, okay? When you start something, when you are the CEO of your own company or the COO or the CFO, it doesn't matter, the biggest challenge that you face is having people paying for what you are selling, okay? And there is no course in the world that will teach you how to be a good salesman or woman, okay? And this is the major hurdle that people face when they go for an entrepreneurship track, okay? So you go for entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship equals sales job, okay? Nowadays, we don't call it sales job, we call it business development. It's much more fancy, the expression, but believe me, you are selling, okay? You are selling a product, you are trying to get someone to pay for something that you are doing, okay? Advantages of this. In entrepreneurial finance, this space, this is actually quite big nowadays. You don't even need to start your own company, as I did. You can either go and work for very big fintech companies. You can go and work for a neobank like Revolut. You can end up working in all sorts of different places that are more techy, different from traditional finance, okay? Advantages of this sort of companies. They are usually much more worried about work-life balance. They are much more worried about your personal development. They are not that finance-focused. They are in a different stage of their life. So two very different worlds, okay? One thing that the entrepreneurial track won't give you, comparing to what I have said before, the stamp will be much of lower quality, okay? So if at a certain point you decide that, okay, this is not for me, I want to work in a bigger company, I want to work somewhere with more structure, more traditional, people will look at your CV and they will see, okay, you are competing with people that now want to move from Goldman Sachs, from Credit Suisse, from Bank of America, whatever, okay? So keep in mind that the stamp is, I won't say of lower quality isn't the best expression, it's a little bit junior, okay? So the traditional stamps, they still carry a little bit more value. I talked about the paycheck in traditional finance. The paycheck in entrepreneurial finance can be as good as the paycheck in traditional finance, but they come in different shapes. Traditional finance gives you a fixed rent, okay? So you get a good salary plus a bonus. In entrepreneurial finance, either you start a company and what you have is equity risk, and someone will have to buy your shares eventually, but if you go and work for fintech companies, most of what they will pay you will be in shares, okay? So entrepreneurial finance is worth your time if you like equity risk, if you are able to accept the swap of receiving less on a monthly basis, because maybe you are working to build a company that actually is worth millions or billions of euros, and you are able to exit your investment, okay? So actually, the company that I founded, we did an IPO a few years ago, okay? So either you are able to do this sort of path or work in a company that eventually does an IPO and everyone gets paid, or it will be a little bit more difficult, okay? So, wrapping this up and then opening the floor to some questions, things to keep in mind. Probably, most of you are just entering the masters, but also thinking about what are you going to do next summer, in summer internships and things like that. Summer internships, from my point of view, they are an excellent opportunity for you to try out one of these paths and see if it is for you or not, okay? Working for 1 month, for 2 months in a company, you will learn everything about that company's culture, okay? You will understand if you identify with that company or if you don't identify yourself with that company, with that sector, okay? So take that opportunity, take those summer internships that you might have in the future to try to make the best possible decision for you, okay? Above all, keep your options open, okay? I find that one factor that usually influences a lot of people, it's actually the cohort where you are, the community with which you are studying, your friends. You see everyone going to traditional finance, to investment banks. Maybe I also should go to an investment bank. Why am I going to a startup? Sometimes it's the other way around. Everyone is going to startups. Why am I going to an investment bank? Okay, so think for yourselves. Try to avoid the herding behavior. Okay, it's not because everyone is going in a certain direction that is your correct direction for you. Okay, so keep that in mind. Second factor, parents, family. Okay, when I told my mother that I was quitting a very well-paid job in finance to open my own company, my mother wanted to kill herself, okay? She was thinking, what are you doing with your life, okay? So she still doesn't believe that I built a company from scratch, okay? She's always telling me, please go and find a real job. She doesn't think that I have a real job, that I'm just playing around with some other people. So above all, and main message for this talk, before someone asks any question, the first job that you choose is actually very important, okay? So it usually signals something in your CV, not for what you are going to do for the rest of your life, but for what you are going to do for some years, okay? So try to figure out what you see yourselves doing, not in 1 or 2 years, but 5 years ahead, 6 years ahead, okay? So, and the decision isn't that difficult, okay? It basically comes to, do you want to go to a place that rewards you on a monthly basis very well, because it will ask a lot from you in terms of hours, in terms of work-life balance, but also gives you a lot of predictability. This is traditional finance, okay? So you put yourselves in the hands of a structure. They have a path for you. They will explain that path for you, and you just have to follow the wagon, okay? So just be part of the team. If you see that you have a profile for that, go for it, okay? There aren't many people, there aren't many industries that reward this sort of behavior so well as the financial industry does, okay? If you prefer more uncertainty, if you like taking more risk, if you think that, no, I'm willing to work a lot, but I want to build something, I want to be part of something different, I want to explore something new, I don't see myself as a member of a very big structure where I'm just another piece of a very big engine, then maybe the entrepreneurial or the fintech track in finance is better for you, okay? The worst thing that you can do is actually go to traditional finance thinking that you are going to be a very big entrepreneur inside Goldman Sachs, or that you are going to a fintech company and expect them to give you a track or a career path as a traditional investment bank would give you, okay? That's where you messed up the choice, okay? So take the next few months to think about this, to try to understand what's better for you, so that you make the decision and you are comfortable with it, okay? So those were my messages. Very happy to answer any questions that you might have at this point.
Hi. How important would you say is learning and knowing how to code or program when you go into fintech? Thank you.
I get that question every year. Okay, coding. I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you really love coding and you expect to have a job in programming, you made a very wrong choice by sitting there. Okay, so you will never be able to program as well as people that are taking degrees in engineering and stuff like that. Okay, but fintech and technology companies that work in the financial industry, they are much more than the technology. Okay, you cannot ask the guy that, not the guy, but the majority of people that actually program stuff to then go in, strategize how do you sell the product. You cannot expect them to do business development. You cannot expect them to sell, okay? And that's your role. That's where finance management people come in, okay? So I would say that you should have basic understanding about coding. And when I say basic understanding, it's understanding the macro structure. So what are the challenges that programmers face? What are their worries when they need to develop a product, okay? So you don't need to know how to program, but you need to be able to understand and be able to communicate with them, okay? So long story short, some basic ideas on how one programming language work, be it VBA, be it Python, maybe it's useful. Becoming a very good programmer in C++, it's irrelevant, okay? So you will never be as good as their C++ developers. So you are just investing time in a skill that people won't value that much, okay?
Can I take them? No. This is quite a personal question, but what was the ultimate incident or happening when you basically told yourself that you would like to change from the traditional finance industry to entrepreneurial finance or fintech?
I think it's the same for everyone. I thought that I was going to make more money in fintech than I was making in traditional finance. So I thought that. So we started 7 years ago. Major hype around marketplaces, around how marketplaces would substitute banks. I never believed in that story, but I thought there was a lot of hype around that, a lot of demand. So we believed that if we were able to build a product that actually worked, we would be handsomely rewarded if we were able to execute it. We were able to execute it, so we were handsomely rewarded. So it was basically a financial decision. And I think it's the same thing with everyone, okay? And the end of the day, all of us, we need to pay bills, okay? So it all comes down to ones and zeros. At least in my case, it was very rational, the decision. So there is no big passion for fintech versus traditional finance. It was just allocation of time. I thought that if I allocated my time to fintech, it would be better rewarded than allocating time in a traditional institution.
Two questions actually. So are you more motivated and are you happier working for your own company rather than for a big bank?
Okay, so the thing about startups and entrepreneurship is that the company is no longer yours after a very quick time, okay? So you need to raise capital, you start having other shareholders, so the idea that you work for yourself only happens in very, very small businesses, okay? So if you have a business that grows and attracts capital, you have other shareholders. So yes, the CEO has bosses, okay? The CEO of every company, they need to answer to shareholders, okay? So at the end, maybe he doesn't have a boss that is there every day telling him, do this, do that, but you are accountable to someone. I really enjoyed the experience at the beginning of being in charge of a company. I wouldn't mind having a boss nowadays, okay? It's much more comfortable to have a boss. If the company is yours and I have that thing in Raise, it's the name of the company is called Raise. I'm on the board and I'm also one of the biggest shareholders. It's a double burden, okay? So a lot of risk there. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, okay? So if you are able to be just a shareholder or just a CEO, much better. You will be able to sleep a lot easier at night. What was the second question?
Yeah, if that makes you happier. So about motivation and happiness, basically.
So the politically correct answer for questions about happiness is that you should always do what makes you happy, right? I have a slightly different view on that. I think that life is all about choices, okay? It's all about choices. Some choices you are happier with them than others. Yes, I would love to always have happy days and only do the things that I enjoy, okay? But life isn't about that. So for a part, the beginning of my career, it was super important to have a boss to give me structure, to put me in a certain path. Then I thought that maybe I'm able to do this myself. I would say that it depends on the stage of life that you are in. I've been happy and unhappy in both roles, okay? I cannot say that being in entrepreneurial finance was much better than in traditional finance, neither that traditional finance was better than the other. So it depends on the stage of life that you are, and in every job you will have, there are good days and there are bad days, okay? There are good semesters, there are bad semesters, good years, bad years, okay? So it's part of life, okay? If you choose that you only want to do happy days, you will need to emigrate to Bali, to Indonesia, and tender in a bar, okay? So, but that wasn't for me. So I needed to do different choices.
How do you know when you have to choose a path, actually?
Sorry, can you repeat? How do
you know when you have to choose a path, either the traditional finance or the entrepreneurial finance?
How do you know? When do you choose? I think, and it's not what I think, okay? So there you are, a little bit dependent on the market, on the professional market, okay? So I would say that people don't understand very well if in 3 years' time you look at your resume and you have 1 year working in, let's say, you worked 1 year in Revolut, 1 year in Goldman Sachs, and 1 year in McKinsey, okay? So people will look at your resume and they won't know who you are, okay? And above all, they will, the only thing that they will know is that you don't know who you are, what you want to do, okay? And that makes your life more difficult in the job market, okay? So that question about when do you choose, I think that professional choices come with a lot of responsibility because you should stick to your choice for a minimum amount of time. I cannot say to you if it is 1 year, if it's 2 years, if it's 3, 4, or 5, okay? Since you are all master students, I know that you have a clear moment of choice, and it's when you are exiting your masters. A possible change, a possible path, it depends on a lot of stuff, okay? It depends on your family situation, it depends on the situation of the company. Imagine that you go and work for a fintech company. Again, you go and work for Revolut, but by chance, Revolut ends up being bought by a very big bank. Then you have another opportunity of choice. The company where you went to work, it's a different company, now you can choose again, okay? So you will be faced with a lot of moments when you can change your choice, okay? So focus on getting the first one right, okay? And that's just around the corner. 1 year and a half goes by very, very fast.
Hi, thank you for the talk, first of all. And then, as one of the co-founders of the company, when you are recruiting, what do you look for first? Do we need to have years of experience? Do you look at interests?
Okay, very, very good question. So, when you are recruiting in a company nowadays, so we will see, and I think this applies to both traditional or more entrepreneurial finance. The first thing that any HR people will see is that you come from Nova, okay? And you are all probably very different from one another, but at the same time you are all from Nova, okay? So immediately there is a stamp, there is a template for you, okay? So what you look for when you go to a job interview, especially recruiting younger people that are just coming out of the university, I don't need you to explain to me what you have done in your masters, okay? I know it very well. Last year I interviewed people that came from the same place. It doesn't change that much, okay? So what I need to know is what distinguishes you from the traditional student in finance. What do you like? What are you pursuing? So are you able to tell that to a recruiter or not? I would say that nowadays that people that stand out in interviews, especially when you are talking about younger people, it's people that are able to tell where do you see yourselves? What do you want to do? And it's not saying things like, I see myself in a leadership position, okay? So all of you tell that. I see myself in a leadership position, or I care a lot about fighting climate change. Those sort of things, those very generic things, don't add that much. But if you are able to project a clear picture of who you are, what are your interests, what drives you, that will set you apart, okay? So, and that applies to a fintech company or any other company, okay? So it's not about explaining what's on the CV and what's in the masters and in your background, because that part people already know. It's all about projecting yourself. So and projecting yourself for the role that you are applying to, okay? So I think that's the second thing. Especially younger people, you usually forget that you are not applying to the company in general, okay? So you are applying for a very specific position, okay? So you need to actually sell to the other side that you know what that position is and that you actually are a fit for that position, okay? So I think it's important to balance these two factors. Any other questions?
Hi. So, as you said that the first job is very important in your career path. So, which company would you suggest to work for? Like, rather in a startup or in a big company?
I already replied to that. It depends, okay? It depends on what you think you want for your life, okay? So if you tell me that your ambition is to be the CEO of a bank in 20 years' time, that's something that you really want in life, go for a role in M&A or investment banking in a big corporation, okay? You don't have to be very imaginative to understand how you get to the top of the corporate ladder, okay? The plan is right in front of you. You either go and work for very big brands in the beginning of your career, you do an MBA in the top tier school 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, and you give 15 to 20 more years to that same company, and the company will reward you, okay? If you want a different thing, if you don't value that sort, or you think that you don't value those things can change in life. If you want a more dynamic thing, if you want to help build something from scratch, if you like that sort of challenge, if you don't see yourself fitting in directly in a very tight structure, then maybe the startup scene is for you, okay? So again, summer internships are very good to understand that, because what you will be doing in a summer internship in a very big institution, if you end up in an investment bank, welcome to the next 10 years of your life, okay? It will be nothing different from what you are doing in your internship. A little bit more responsibility here and there, but in terms of corporate culture, in terms of work-life balance, it's all there, okay? So if you don't like it in your internship, you will definitely not like it in the next couple of years, okay? So it's a good hint for making that decision. No more questions? So enjoy the rest of your evening, and probably I will be seeing you around for the rest of the year, okay? So bye-bye.